Hey everyone! Today's video is going to be all about my vacuum chamber. If you're not familiar with these, they can get all of the bubbles out of your resin. In my opinion, they're kind of life-changing. If you work with a resin a lot, they're worth the investment. When I first got it, I was a little skeptical about spending as much as I did. I think for my initial setup, it was like $230, but this time around I got new stuff. I feel like it was cheaper. This vacuum chamber I got from Harbor Freight was $97, and that's with tax and everything. And the new little 2-quart vacuum chamber I got was $85. This is my old chamber, and this is my old vacuum pump. And I'll talk a little bit about these before moving on to the newer stuff. With this, I messed it up. Like, let me show you the top. The reason that I'm replacing it is because the top is a little bit harder, well, it's a lot harder to see through. And when I degas my resin, when I get the bubbles out, I need to be able to see in there really well to see what's going on. And I'll be doing a demo later on in the video of degassing both thick and thin resins. They are very different to work with in these. And I'll show you and break down why I need to be able to see in there. So since I can't really see in there, I went ahead and I got a whole new setup, but I didn't really have to. And the reason I didn't have to was because the company that makes these vacuum chambers sells individual parts. So while I bought a whole new setup for $85, I bought a new part that I need, which is just the plexiglass, for like $7. And it is clear, there's this film that we'll get to later. So what I'm going to do in the video is I'm going to set up my new chamber and my new pump, and I'm also going to repair my old pump, which I have not done before. So there will be wrenches involved in all of that. The valves and pieces can just get taken off and put on to a new piece. So that's some of the stuff we're going to cover today. I'm going to get in depth about setting up everything you need to. And the things that we're really going to need for this project are Teflon tape or plumber's tape. It's very important. And it's just, it was super cheap. I got it at Harbor Freight for 99 cents, but it's going to help you get a good seal. And even on this older chamber, that's what that is right there. It's Teflon tape, and it's because it just wasn't getting a good enough seal to make a vacuum, so we'll get there. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is actually talk about the chambers themselves. These are the 2-quart size, and these can get pretty big. I think up to 3 gallons, probably bigger, but the biggest one I know about is 3 gallons. The reason I have such small ones is because I mix such small amounts of resin that I don't really need a bigger chamber. And so there are some differences in these chambers, and I'm going to break them down. I'm going to break down what the parts are, how they work. These both have these 2 separate valves like this. There is another model that has just one stem and the 2 parts on either side, and I'll put links to what I'm talking about in the description box below. And the reason I wanted this particular model with these parts far away from each other is so I can see inside there. Like I said, I need to be able to see what's going on inside the chamber, and I feel like the other design that's kind of just straight across, like these are just straight across, it kind of would not really let me see what's going on in the pot, so that's why I chose these particular models. So this is the old one I got like 5 years ago or so, and it's held up really well. I mean, it's kind of messy, like I pointed out, and I'll show you how I even messed it up. The inside's crazy too, but that doesn't matter nearly as much. So the difference in these is this one came with a filter, first and foremost. This is the filter. I didn't even snap that this one didn't have it, and then I had to order it, and it was no big deal. This is like $2.50 from the Best Value Vacs where I got all this stuff. Like I said, they sell individual replacement parts. So yeah, I just bought a filter. Now the filter is important, and I will kind of break down why. So with the chamber, how this even is going to work is Like, the most important thing about them is there's going to be a tube that's going to connect to the vacuum pump itself, and I'll show how all of that works out. On this particular older one, it is this. On this newer one, it is this like fancier kind of cord thing with a screw in and all of that. So that's the big difference. Okay, so there's going to be the part that is going to actually connect to the pump. Now with this one, and this is important about these things actually, is a lot of the stuff is interchangeable. You see how that screws off, and now that can screw on there. There's a lot of things that you can do with that. See, now that can screw on over here if you needed it to, so on and so forth. Best Value Vax also sells a lot of like that type of hardware for these things. So you're going to need the tube that connects to the pump, and that's going to suck the air out of there and actually create the vacuum. How you're going to break the vacuum and how you're going to regulate the bubbling of the resin, you'll see what I'm talking about later, is the valve. The valve is going to be your best friend for a myriad of reasons. And on this side, I already have the filter hooked up to it. The valve is what's going to break that vacuum seal and introduce air back in so you can take the top off and get your resin out. Because if there's the vacuum, you can lift it even just by the lid and it will stick. Like, there is a vacuum. So the valve, that's what's going to help with that, and you want to keep a close eye on that while you're degassing your resin. Now, as far as the filter goes, in case you're wondering, do I need a filter? You do need a filter, and here's why. I've tried doing it without a filter, and there's a bunch of like lint, and if you have animals, probably hair and dust and things like that in the air. And when that vacuum seal gets broken, when you release the valve and introduce air back in, it pretty violently like sucks it all in there. So it's going to pull everything in the air into the pot, which is going to end up in your resin. So the filter is important. That is something that you want to have a part of your whole setup. Okay, so now I'm going to get a little bit more in detail about all of this hardware and all this stuff. Like I said, this one came with this tube that connects to the pump, and it's just, yeah, that's sucked on there pretty good. That probably doesn't want to come off, and that's okay. Now this part, this is how we have the filter hooked up on this side. This is a barb, and this one came with a barb as well. It was connected to this part. Like I said, this was a very different setup from what I got last time. It came with this tube as well, in case you're wondering what's up with that. That's how all that worked out. I don't know what the other tube would even be for. I'm sure somebody does know. Comment below if you do. But as I said, all of this stuff, it screws off. It's pretty interchangeable and all of that. So I don't need the barb for this one, because the hose that's connecting to the pump is going to go on this side. I did need to do some kind of alterations and get some pieces for this side, because this side is going to have the filter like I talked about, and this, you know, clearly does not go on like that. So I picked something up from Home Depot. It was in the plumber's aisle, and it's just a coupler, and I'll show you. That is what it is. It's a 1/4 inch coupling. And what that's going to allow me to do, and like I said, you can get these from Best Value Vax as well. What it's going to allow me to do is screw this onto here, screw this into here, and now my filter will be set up on there. It is very loose, as you can see. And how I'm going to fix that is with the plumber's tape. That's going to help get a seal on things. It's going to help things fit better. I probably could have ordered that piece from Best Value Vax and it would be perfect, but I did not, and here we are. Which is nice though, because I can show you with the Teflon tape how to make some repairs and make things work out for you. So that's what's going to go on here. Now with this one, it came with the two barbs like that, and so me and my husband were just trying to figure out how to even make this work. At that point in things, I had never dealt with one at all before. Like, I was just desperately grasping on to what was going on. And like I said, even now, I'm not like a super genius as far as this goes. I know how to make it work enough to where I can do what I need to do. So with that, what we did was... Oh, that doesn't want to come off either. Oh, it does. It does. Okay. Ooh. All right, so with this one, it was 2 barbs, the filter screwed in, and that's how we made these 2 pieces that were not supposed to come together. Come together was with the hose. So yeah, you may have to get creative. There is nothing wrong with that. That's what's happening with the old one. So now that I've broken down all of that, I'll talk about the pumps and then start to set them up. And then after that, I'll start to do the repair. Like I said, that I want to take all the pieces off of this and put them onto this. So that should be quite an adventure. I've never done anything like this before. So I'm going to clear this off. I'm going to set up the pumps and then we'll talk about that next. Here is my new vacuum pump. I'm going to unbox it and all of that and then kind of compare it to the older one. But first, yeah, let's unbox it. So these are the directions that it came with, and I'll kind of gloss over those after we take it out of the box. So, okay. It does come with a little bottle of oil. My other one, my older one, did as well. It was a bigger bottle, I feel like, that time. But yeah, it's just a little bit of starter oil. And then when it came time to buy more oil, I got this brand right here. And it is vacuum pump oil. And I got it on Amazon. I'll leave the link for all of that. So yeah, it's vacuum pump oil. These things are heavy, just a heads up. I don't know how heavy. I would say maybe like 20 pounds. Maybe I'm overshooting it though. Regardless, they're heavy. Yeah, I would say about 20 pounds. This is just some random disclaimer. It's illegal to discharge refrigerant in the atmosphere. Yeah, that's not relevant to us. Alright, so here we have our cord that plugs into the wall. Okay, now this one is set up differently. Now that I have it out of the bag and box, I'll pull up my other one. Okay, so here's what they look like side by side. Now I'm noticing this one says automotive and this one says refrigeration. Alright, so I took a little bit of time and did a little bit of research, and they're pretty much both for refrigeration, like automotive, air conditioning, something, whatever. And looking at them on the surface, like 2.5 CFM, I don't know what CFM means, but that's that. 120 volts, 60 hertz, like they're saying the same things. So yeah, now we're gonna go into the information that came with it, and we're just going to kind of skim over it. Disconnect the pump from the outlet before making any adjustments. Store the pump when it's idle and out of reach of children and other untrained persons. I just stick it in a cabinet. Oh, here we go. Okay, functions. This vacuum pump is useful for pumping gas from sealed containers, for example, refrigerators, medical appliances, printing machinery, vacuum packing, other types of high vacuum equipment. The vacuum will build for approximately 2 minutes before reaching full power. Allow the pump to draw vacuum on the system for approximately 10 minutes to thoroughly remove all the moisture and any gas from the system. Okay, the gauge should show negative pressure. We don't have one on there, but there's one on the pot. Okay, turn the power switch off before disconnecting the hose from the vacuum fitting. Okay, that's just all the parts and all of that. All right, so immediate differences I've noticed with these is on this one, this is for oil. This is where the oil goes in. For this one, it says that this is where the air goes in. Upon unscrewing them, they look the same inside. So do with that what you will. Okay, now this one has this right here. And this one does not have this Okay, so this is where the oil is going to go in this time, as opposed to my older model where the oil went in here. So we're going to pour the oil in there. We'll do that in a little bit. I'm going to continue breaking down things about these first. So now we're going to get more in detail about what's going on these. So on the front of them, there is the oil level. So when you pour your oil in, you can see the level that it's at. You want it to be at that line. In my older one, that's where the oil is at. Now these are what your tubes and all of that I talked about are going to connect to. And there's different ones. There's this flare piece, and then this not flare. I don't know what the technical term for that even is. On this older one, they were reversed. Like this type of connection is on the top and the flare was on the other side. And on that flare, I had the barb connected to. So now that we've broken all of that down real quick, before I put the oil in, I'll show you what I'm talking about when I said that the hoses and all of that connect to these. I'll break that down right now. So give me 1 second. Okay, so this is my old pump. This is my old chamber. And the hose just connected right onto that barb. It just squeezed right in there, and that's how all that worked. So now my chamber is now connected to my pump, and when I turn it on, all of the air is going to suck out that way. So that's the old one with the tube and the barb. The new one is a little bit different, so I'll get that set up right now. Okay, so with this new setup, I'm going to be using this flare piece. I do not need this side, so that's just going to stay screwed in. There you go. Okay, now with this piece up here, I'm going to take my new fancy hose thing that screws right in, and I'm going to screw it in. And I'm probably going to come back later and I'm going to cover it with the Teflon tape to create a seal. I don't know if it will create a perfect vacuum seal on its own yet, but it doesn't hurt to just ensure that it will. And then I'm going to take the other side of my hose and I'm going to connect it to the pot itself. And that's another one I'm probably going to come in with the tape to get a good seal. But you now see that the pot is connected to the pump. When we turn on the pump, it is going to suck the air out of the chamber. So that's what's going on there. You'll see it in action here in a little bit when we degas the resin. So now that I've done that and shown you how those connections work, I'm going to go ahead and put oil into my chamber. And I'm going to put something under it because this does get messy. Paper towels are also going to be handy. I still have yet to cut this thing off, but for now I'm just gonna come in and I'm going to start to fill it with the oil. And when you fill it, you want to make sure you're paying attention to that gauge in the front like we talked about. You want to hit that line and you want to take your time with it. Because I've noticed it does take a little bit of time to actually get to where it needs to, and because of that, it's easy to over pour. So I'm going to take the oil that it came with. Oh, this is going to get messy. Let me grab some gloves real quick. Okay, I have my gloves, I have my paper towels, so I'm going to get ready to go ahead and just pour that right on in there. Okay, so it's now at the fill line and it took just about that entire bottle. I just screwed this off just because I figured maybe it would help. I don't know, it probably didn't do anything. Regardless, we now have our oil in our pump. So now that my pump is all set up, I'm gonna screw this in and just kind of turn it on and check out what's going on. I haven't added that plumber's tape to it yet. I'm just kind of doing a little test run. So on the front of it, there's this gauge, and this gauge is going to start to do some things when we turn on the pump. On top of it, there's this little rubber piece, and there was like a little nib there that you're supposed to cut off before using it, and it's supposed to regulate the pump or whatever. So yeah, that's just something you need to do if you get one of these. Okay. So I think this is switched. The valve is switched to where all of the air is going to suck out and it's not going to allow air in. We'll see. So now I'm going to position this onto the pot itself. You want to make sure it's positioned on right. It's like a silicone material. It needs to be positioned on right so it can suck down onto it, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it on and we're going to see what happens, and it's going to get a little bit noisy, just a heads up. All right. So I'm sure you saw it. If you didn't see, oil is starting to burn off of it. That is completely normal, especially when it's new. There will be that happening. So there's nothing to be freaked out about. Okay, so with this, I noticed that there was not really that great of a seal. I'm going to turn it on one more time. So now because of that, what we're going to do is we're going to come in with this plumber's tape. And the plumber's tape, is going to go on both of these to get a better seal. It's this thin, like very, very thin, plasticky kind of tape. And what you're going to do with it is you're going to go around these connections. And it's going to help get a much better seal. So I'm just gonna get kind of in there with that. We'll add some and then we'll see how that works out, and if we need more, then we will add more. But all I'm doing is taking Teflon tape and putting it around it. Now I'm gonna re-screw this. Now I'm gonna do it to the side that's connected to the pump. Probably take that off. Can I take that off? Okay, I'm gonna leave that for now. So same, I'm gonna come in with my superfine tape and I'm gonna wrap it. All right, so now I'm gonna come back in with these. I'm gonna screw them on. Now we're gonna turn it back on again. Did you see that difference? The only reason I turned it off is because I did not feel that that was on strong enough. But okay, now that we've sealed it, pay attention to that gauge again. So we're going to make sure our valve is closed. We're going to turn it back on. Now, to break down what you just saw, the pressure got much better after we sealed everything. You see the gauge start to do its thing, and then when it was time to release it, it's this valve. That's how you're going to let that air suck back in, and it's going to break that seal. As I previously mentioned, the oil burning off is common, especially when it's new. As long as you're in a well-ventilated area, it is okay. It will not keep on doing that. Now, one thing that is important, and I'm going to do it one more time just to show you, is you want to start to release the air before you turn off the pump. Because if you don't do that, like some oil can suck in something weird, like it could do something you don't want to do. So I'm going to show you one more time what I'm talking about. So we're going to make sure the valve is closed. And later on, this is where the filter is going to be, because the air is going to suck through and all that, but we'll get there. So the valve is off, we're going to turn it on. And then when we want to stop using it, we're going to release the air and then turn it off. Yeah, so I'm gonna let that do its thing for a while so it stops burning the oil like that, and then we'll move on to actually degassing some resin, and I'll break down to you how I messed up that other plexiglass piece. So I'm gonna break down degassing the resin, and then I'm gonna repair the other one after, just in case you're not really interested in that and just wanna see the resin part. So yeah, that will be next. Okay, so I worked ahead a little bit and I put on the filter and that coupler and all that. I just took that plumber's tape and attached it right to the valve. So that's what's happening. I mixed up some very thick resin and I'm going to be putting that into the chamber first. This is Art and Glow. I recently did a review about Art and Glow and I wasn't happy with how thick it was because it gets a lot of bubbles. Other than that though, besides the bubbles, like it's holding up pretty well. So lately I've been doing tests. I've been taking pieces I've cast and I've been putting them out into the sun to see how their yellowing is and all of that. And this is what Art and Glow looks like after a month of being in the sun. That's really good. This is what another brand of resin I recently reviewed, Paduo. That's what that looks like after like a week in the sun. It is yellowing so much. So yeah, but on this note, this is what Art and Glow looks like without a vacuum chamber. This is what Art and Glow looks like with a vacuum chamber. This is how much difference one of these can make. So I'm taking my thicker Art and Glow resin and I'm going to put it into my vacuum chamber. And now I'm going to go ahead and talk about how I have messed up my plexiglass piece, because remember I was talking about I've messed these up in the past. So how I did that was when we put the resin in, it's going to start to degas, and when we start to release the pressure here, air is going to go in. If you open this up too fast, it will spew the resin everywhere because it's just a lot of air just flying in there. So that's something to be careful of. This thicker resin tends to bubble up a lot, so it might start to like froth. And how I'll handle that is adjusting the valve. And you might also see me like knock the cup in there from side to side, or maybe hit it like that. I'm just helping to pop those bigger bubbles faster so I can get it to the point where I can completely close the valve. So you'll see what I'm talking about here in a little bit. I'm going to get ready to put my resin in. Okay, so that's stirred up. I'm going to put my resin in here. I'm going to make sure that my lid is positioned right. I'm going to make sure that is in this right position. Now I'm going to turn on my pump. And I know it's hard to see, but it's starting to froth up. There we go. Okay, it's starting to froth up kind of fast. I don't want it to spill out over the cup. So how I'm going to handle that is I'm going to release the valve a little bit. And you see how those bubbles shrink back down? I'll do it one more time. All right, they're starting to all froth up. Knocking the cup around will help. All right. So by messing with the valve and knocking the cup around like that, it's helped to at least get those bubbles under control. I no longer have to worry about all of them frothing over and it making a huge mess. So when I do decide to let all the air in, like I said, I want to be super careful about releasing this very easy so I don't spray resin everywhere. But there you go, it's going to continue to do its thing, and it's going to continue to bubble. That's a good thing. We want all of those bubbles to come out, and that's how that's going to happen. Usually with thicker resins, this can take like 20 minutes to half an hour. Sometimes it doesn't take that long, but sometimes it really does. Okay, you have the basic idea, so I'm going to go ahead and release this now. So like I said, I'm going to be super easy about letting this go. And then I'm going to turn off my chamber. And I'm going to let that air in nice and easy. Okay. And that's what that is starting to look like. There's still a lot of, hold on. There's still a lot of bubbles. That by no means is done, but you get the basic idea. I was gonna show this with a thinner resin, but I'm not going to. I'm just gonna break it all down for you. With a thinner resin, you put it in, you leave it for like a minute. There's no problems with the frothing up or anything like that. And in honestly about a minute, it is done. Super Sap CCR degasses so fast, it is insane. But those are the basics there. I broke down how I messed up my thing. I showed you the frothing with the bubbles and all of that and how to handle that, because it will make a mess. You will make a huge mess your first few times. So I hope that helped you hopefully get to a point where it's not too terrible. So I feel like I covered everything I wanted to with this. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to taking my other vacuum chamber and putting this piece on it. If you are not interested in that, I would like to thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot and I hope you have a great day. And if you would like to see me do that, then let's move on to the next scene and I will start to get all of this situated. So yeah. If you decided to stick around to watch me change out this part, then I'm gonna go ahead and just jump right on into it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is peel off this protective layer. That was very satisfying in a weird way. Okay, so we got that. Now, what we have going on under here, well, the first thing we can actually really do is take off this silicone. That will go just around the other one, and that's what gives us the seal for this part to the pot itself. All right. So now I'm going to figure out what wrench I need. This is just a wrench set I got at Harbor Freight. This is the first time I have bought tools, to be honest. I've never really needed tools like this, so that's pretty cool, I suppose. All right. So I'm just going to start with that one. I don't see why not. Okay, and then I might actually need, yeah, I'm gonna need another wrench to hold that into place. All right, so the one that I'm using for the back part is a 1/2 inch. And the one that is not working. Okay, and the other one is going to be a 3/4 inch, apparently. Oh, this is so awkward. I've never done anything like this. Oh. That was so awkward. Like, I've never done anything like that, and that was, I don't care to admit how long that actually took. Okay, anyways, here are our components. Good deal. Okay, that is now off. So I'll take the other ones off and then we'll get ready to put this onto this plexiglass. Maybe this one will be easier now that, nope, maybe it won't. All right. Okay, that also took me a really long time. That is stuck, okay? It's gonna say stuck on there for whatever reason, but that is, of course, resin. All right, so we have that part, that part, that part. All right, now I'm gonna take off the gauge and then we can move on. Okay, the gauge is coming off way easier than the rest of them. I made the mistake of holding it upside down though, and some of that glycerin fell out. It's not the end of the world, but yeah, I'm sure it's not something you like want to happen. Okay, so that was the last part. We have the gauge, the barb, and this other piece. So I'm gonna clean up a little bit and get ready to put them onto the other plexiglass. All the pieces are off. That was way harder than I thought it was gonna be. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just put them back onto this new one. So I'm just gonna fit that in. I'm gonna put that washer there, and then I'm going to start screwing these guys in. Okay, we got one on there securely. Now we'll move on to the other ones. That one was off to a rocky start. It went on a lot easier though. So now for the last part, the gauge itself. All right, that one's going on way easier. That is tightened on there. There is glycerin all over my hand. I'm gonna go rinse that off and then we'll put the seal back on. Now we're gonna put the seal back on. That's just gonna go around there, like so. All right, so there we go. We went from this to this. All right, I'm not even gonna lie, that was intense and it took me a really long time. Still though, it was a $7 repair, so I feel that the work involved was worth it. Yeah, so there we go. That, I suppose, covers everything I wanted to cover. I know this was a long video, and if you hung out to the end, I really thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing and all those things that go with YouTube. I hope you have a great day.